Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Sliding into My DMs, part of the D4 network. This is the show on the network. It's basically a talk show about Dungeons and Dragons. We talk about D&D rules. We talk about brain farts. We
Butterfly farts.
Have them all the time.
Butterfly farts.
It was a rough day.
Writer's block.
Because I'm here. I'm throwing the mojo.
I did fine last week.
I'm sorry. You're throwing off Colby's groove.
I'm sorry.
We talk about D&D news, and we talk about D&D tips and how to make sure that everybody at your table is having a great time playing this game that we love, Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm your host. My name's Colby. Thanks for being here. And with me, as always, we've got some of my DMs. So yes, Dallin, I almost called you Preston. Dallin, Mr. Rogers, is joining me in the flesh live.
AKA other Preston.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We played, most of you probably know, we played with kind of doing an in-person like live format last week. Seemed to be pretty well received, even though the audio quality, I think, was left something to be desired.
Yeah, we messed up. Sorry.
We're working on that. We're tinkering. But in the meantime, it's pretty easy using a single mic to just have Dallin join me. So we thought, hey, we'd pretend that we were the dungeon dudes for a day. And, but then, of course, we have Preston with us and also Corey. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate having you. How's everybody doing? Having a good week?
I'm good.
I'm excellent, but it will get better because tomorrow's Thursday.
Oh, yeah. Game night. Always a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's right. Awesome. Well, let's just jump in to the topics that I wanted to discuss with you guys today. First, as always, we have a quick ruling and a longer conversation that is going to be longer. Man, I don't know. I am struggling.
It's okay.
That's okay. All right. So for the quick ruling this week, I think it's a fairly straightforward question, but based on some little preamble that we had before we started recording, maybe not.
Maybe not.
I was actually a little nervous that everybody would just be like, yeah, duh, that's easy. And then I'd be like, well, that was a stupid question. But here it is. If I am using a two-handed weapon in combat, and I also have the ability to cast spells, do I need the Warcaster feat in order to cast spells with a somatic component? So for the uninitiated, somatic component is basically, we're basically told that if a spell has a somatic component, you need a free hand in order to,
throw
make
gang
the signs and exactly. So
do your Naruto signs.
So do I need Warcaster if I am using, like a great sword or something like that, and I want to cast a spell? What do you guys think? That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes, you do.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Okay. So
before we get to my counterpoint, I feel like you guys should explain your logic.
Yes, tell me why.
It's the rules.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do a light one, and then I'll hand it off to you, Corey.
Mm-hmm.
The way I read this is that the Warcaster specifically says you can perform somatic components of spells even when you have weapons or a shield in one or both hands. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important because with a two-handed weapon, technically you could let one hand off and that could let it fly. But because it has such a specific thing about like having weaponry in your hands, I'd say that you need to have Warcaster to be, or at least be where, if you're casting a spell, if someone wanted to stick their long sword or two-handed sword in the ground, cast a spell, and then come back to it, that'd be fine. But I wouldn't let them be like, I'm gonna make an attack, now I'm gonna do this other thing that involves spell casting. It makes Warcaster a little more useless, I guess, because if someone's taking that feat, I don't want to cheapen a feat just by saying, hey, you can cast it even though you've got a two-handed weapon.
Sure. I mean, I guess my thought was always that it was for people who had, say, like
Sword
a
and
shield and
shield.
a sword, or
Yeah.
like we're dual wielding or whatever. But I don't know, Corey, tell us your thoughts, your reasoning.
I think Preston nailed it directly on the head there, because having a two-handed weapon means both of your hands are dedicated to using that weapon. There is no feat, there should be, but there is no feat that says you can use a two-handed weapon with one hand
Sure.
in D&D. So taking one hand off of a two-handed weapon that is only a two-handed weapon and is not versatile means that weapon cannot be used in combat mechanically. It cannot be used in combat while you're also casting spells.
Right.
That's what the Warcaster is there for. It's basically if your hands are full, you can cast spells.
And just to clarify, for those who may not know, what we're told about somatic components is spellcasting gestures might include, if a spell has a somatic component to it, the little S next to the, components, spellcasting gestures might include a forceful gesticulation. That sounds really inappropriate, by the way. Forceful gesticulation. I don't like.
Gesticulate while masticating the components of something.
That's what the M stands for, right? Is masticating.
Yes. Okay, this is getting bad quickly.
Welcome to the BDMS D&D.
Okay.
We just need more acronyms.
Anyway, it might include that or an intricate set of gestures. If a spell requires a somatic component, the caster must have free use of at least one hand to perform these gestures, right? And so that's why, obviously, I think we're kind of pontificating here.
Right.
So don't play a spellcaster with no arms.
The hand, right? That's the clarifying point
Right.
there.
They have to have a free use of their hand to cast the spell. Yes.
So here's where I disagree with you guys. If you look in the player's handbook on two-handed weapons specifically, it states, let's read it here. This weapon requires two hands when you attack with it. This property is relevant only when you attack with the weapon, not when you simply hold it. So in my mind, when you're making the attack, you're using two hands, but then you can let go and cast the spell.
I mean, it makes sense to me, right? It seems like, I don't know why I couldn't, rest it on my shoulder to go blah blah blah, or put the point in the ground. I'm still maybe sorry, you can't see. I'm still holding holding onto it with one hand.
You have control of it, but you're not actively wielding it.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it would depend on, are you trying to cast a spell as an action? Did you swing the sword that turn?
Is it versatile?
Action spell? Is it a reaction spell?
It gets a little gray, but I think just as it's written there, I think you're allowed, because it specifically states it's only two-handed while you're making the attack.
Right.
But it's one of those ones where, like, if you have a flambears, right, they usually have the ability to be able to, when you're wielding it, technically you could wield one. It's a little unruly, but you could wield one. There's plenty of YouTube videos if you want to go look at them about wielding them, and like they can grab like on the blade a little bit further. And it is possible to wield and swing and cast a spell at the same time. But there's other weapons that might be a little more unruly, like a maul, right?
I love how Preston there is like using logic to talk about how you should be able to wield a sword with one hand and cast a spell with the other.
No, absolutely
logical.
It's absolutely, like, I don't see anything wrong with battle mages, but I think but as far as the rules is written, it feels like that does it. Again, that's my core, is that as long as it doesn't cheapen someone else's, because if someone has to take a feat to do something, I don't want to give that for free to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Unless it's something stupid.
I get the sentiment, but I think Warcaster specifically is for dual wielding or sword and board kind of styles. I think a two-handed, you can easily let go and cast a spell.
So what's to stop somebody from dropping their shield and casting a spell?
We already had a Slidin into my DMs episode on that. Dallin, point. Well, it's just right over Dallin's forehead.
Right here.
So go check it out. Talk about it, because that's in the same vein of, like, if you can set one down, you should be able to set the other, slough off another one. But usually shields are just like, you got a buckler that's on your arm. Some of them are strapped on. I can see that, but others you could drop pretty easily.
The difference is the rule, though, in the player's handbook specifically says while making an attack. It doesn't say that with the shield or anything.
Yeah.
So it could go either way. It really just depends on your DM.
I honestly think that if you take that to D&D Adventure League, they will require you to have Warcaster in order to cast spells.
There's a good question for the viewers. Those of you who have played in Adventure League, if you've seen this come up, let us know. I mean, obviously, I'm always interested in your guys' feedback regardless. So agree, disagree, tell us how you'd rule this at your table, how your DM maybe rules it if it's come up. But yeah, I'd be curious, especially if you've played in Adventure League.
Right.
See this.
I can feel all the comments coming from me already.
No, I think most
You can come at me. I got
Yeah.
this.
But
Yeah,
maybe I'm
I think you'll get most of the people on your side just because typically
In favor of.
typically your commenters are always in favor of the player rather than any sort of actual rules.
I don't know. I disagree. Corey. I think
From the last couple episodes of comments against me, no, that is exactly the case.
I think you might be taking this a little personally.
to be fair, last episode I was channeling my inner Corey, and somebody was like, "You're wrong, Corey."
I'm not even there. Actually,
I didn't know if they just
If they just
I
thought it was
watched the
Colby.
last
They
episode,
really
and
were, like,
you
addressing
were completely wrong.
through me. But anyway, I got a good laugh out of that.
That's funny.
Yeah. I think what I would rule at my table is if you cast a spell with a two-handed weapon, you can't attack with that weapon this turn because you're taking your hand off to cast the spell. And again, we're not talking about a turn that your action takes like a minute. It's 6 seconds of combat really quick, right? It's hard to believe that somebody can cast a full spell and attack within 6 seconds. It happens.
Unless
But
they've got
you need to be able to
where they're
have-
specifically trained for that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what a warcaster
I would
trains for.
still argue that I could be like in a backswing and be like, "Nope, just put it on my shoulder." And But you know,
Yeah, you can argue that all you want. I probably wouldn't accept it.
I guess it
Well,
just depends on like how your DM imagines combat too. Like that's part of it,
Yeah.
right? And it's weird because it's this shared imagination space. So it's like when you have conflicting ideals, it's weird, and you end up with these kind of situations.
Sure.
So
thoroughly exhausted the topic, so thank you. And
and
again,
you're wrong.
At me in the comments.
yes,
I'm just kidding.
Let us know your thoughts, agree, disagree, and especially again, if you've seen this at your table, how it was ruled.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the longer conversation. And we're back. Thanks to our sponsors.
So
all
I
minion.
need to make an apology.
Don't do
I
it.
need to make a formal apology video on YouTube. I'm sorry that this happened. It will never happen again. I'm in Camp
something-
Dallin and Colby now. I with our quick ruling.
High five.
I did some additional research, and there's one very pointed thing that comes up, and it's clerics using a sword and shield, but having the shield be their holy focus. And they like wading into combat, but they still like using spells with somatic components and kind of rulings. And this pains me to say, but Jeremy Crawford included has said that the somatic components can be used with that shield hand that's attached to the focus. And a lot of people are just commenting about how like when they're LARPing, it's a lot easier to cast a spell with a two-handed weapon than a shield and sword, plus a lot of different rulings that kind of went into the whole like
True.
the errata kind of said that it now only requires the free hand when attacking kind of thing.
Logic reigns supreme.
Yeah, I gotta give it over.
Okay.
I'm
I'm
changing
gonna stand my
tune.
ground because people need someone to throw tomatoes at, and I'll be that guy.
It's your job as the bard to get tomatoes.
Yeah, actually, Preston, make me a performance check.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Google, roll a d20.
Something.
Is it doing anything?
Natural 20.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
back in
throwing
Kansas.
tomatoes at that.
Screenshot.
Here, I'll screenshot it. I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you.
I appreciate that we made a combo. You photoshopped
Can't see it.
Yep.
Can't see it.
20.
that.
It looks like
Ow.
a 1 to me.
So I want to talk about late game play, that ever elusive, rarely seen, the Bigfoot of D&D. Level 17 plus gameplay, or 15 plus maybe, depending on your table. I don't know. Anyway, I guess my overarching general question is, why don't we see this more at our tables? Like, it's not just us. I think it's basically everybody, maybe with, a few rare exceptions, but hardly anybody plays the game. Hardly anybody plays D&D at, like, I don't know, level 13 and beyond, I think is the sense that I get from just
Most of the
videos
books,
that I
source books.
watch, comments in my videos and things like that. And I don't have a really clear understanding as to why. And so I'd like to maybe pick your guys' brains on that a little bit, but then also, get beyond the why a little bit and talk about, what we can potentially do for those interested anyway, to like encourage more late game play, what the benefits of it are, why we would, be potentially interested in having late game play. And like maybe some tips or advice that you guys might have to make late game D&D work better, be more fun, be more enjoyable, et cetera. But let's start with the why. Why is it that we don't see late game play at our tables? I mean, Wizards of the Coast like doesn't even create official content for late game, and yet they have given us like all of these things like 9th level spells and capstone features to classes and subclasses and all of these things that
Some better than others.
yes, some definitely some better than others, but they never generally see the light of day. So like, to me it's almost like, why even bother like creating these late game options if you're not also going to create content to support it? I mean, obviously we don't just have to run official Wizards of the Coast adventures, right? And I think a lot of tables, or maybe most tables, eventually do some home brewing themselves, and they might use an official adventure as like a starting point, but then kind of continue the story from there with some homebrew. Maybe they're just trying to encourage that, I don't know. But what are your guys' thoughts? In our first campaign in the Horde of the Dragon Queen / Rise of Tiamat,
Did we get up to 16?
we ended the game at level 17. Like
okay.
After
We had
beating, no spoilers, but after beating the final boss, who shall remain unnamed, but I bet you could guess.
Yeah.
dragons. Yeah.
We dinged. That's an old WoW term. Sorry, World of Warcraft. We hit level 17, and I was so excited because I was playing a monk, of course, and it was a way of the open hand monk, and that ability is amazing. And I was like, yay! And then the game was over.
We stopped.
Never got to use it.
Yeah. Sorry, I was the one running that game, and I couldn't remember what level we got to. I apologize.
Well,
That's okay.
It's been a while.
So
Yeah, a long time.
my thoughts about why Wizards doesn't do mini adventures in such a high level campaign. Number one, they're really hard to plan for every contingency for, right? Like Wizards basically has like, here's the MacGuffin, here's why these specific spells won't work against it, because your players might get access to those spells. And then once you hit like level 16, 17, 18, it's like, well, maybe they'll have a wish spell at some point, like they kind of can do whatever they want. I think the adventures are meant to be the building blocks for your characters. You start out, you do this level 1 to 10 adventure, you become the grand heroes, and then your DM is supposed to take it from there and take it to the next level, or 5 levels, however you want to see it. There are a few books out there that do higher level campaigns. I know the Secrets of Candlekeep has a single encounter or a single one-shot campaigns for level 15 through 20. And I think Preston and I have actually played one back when they were doing play testing. And that was a lot of fun playing an 18 or 20th level character, but I think it just boils down to Wizards knows that once you hit that level, you're pretty much uber powerful. So your DM has to come up with something to stop that, because it's easier for your DM to do that for a specific group and really get into your players, your characters' heads, rather than them just trying to throw some random bad guy at them.
Right.
Okay. Preston or Fallon, what do you guys think?
I'll let my inner cynic out. I would say it's because it doesn't make as much money, because there's more games per capita that are playing at a lower level, and further going down. And you guys know me, I don't like going the depressing route. But the other thing is, the longer you have humans together in a room, the more likely conflict will arise.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually every group, like there are still those golden groups. Like I feel like our group is a pretty dang good group. Everyone's kind of
you just jinxed us. I'm knocking
copacetic.
on wood here.
Knock on wood. But it's one of those ones where it's, eventually there's going to be, if you have a long running campaign, right, there's going to be scheduling conflicts. There's just more room for that kind of stuff. And eventually it's going to become a burden to somebody rather than something they enjoy. And then the group's going to break up. And that's usually, I feel like that's the story I hear over and over and over when it comes to those kind of campaigns. And that's why you see new campaigns starting all the time. It's because people play and then they play for a little while and then life gets busy or people move away or that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
wait, show your tattoo. It's like give a close up.
Okay.
It's gotten better.
It's healed.
Oh, that looks so cool.
Well, it's oh my gosh, that's the direction. Yeah,
Doesn't have the
Worldwide Archive fans, take a drink.
all right, enough. So I think from a DM's perspective, it's really hard to balance combat after like level 10. Really, it gets extremely challenging. Like in our Bronze Battalion campaign, you guys were what, level 12, and I was throwing you against like the highest challenge rating monsters you could have in the DMG and Monster Manual. So
I mean, not quite Tarrasques,
but like level below.
Yeah. Like uber deadly.
And I mean, it was like taking it down to the last round, so like it was really intense. But like a level 12, that is like you should be wiped, and you guys were just doing a good job.
Well,
so I think it's hard to balance. You can't account for every situation or every spell or every I'm gonna cheese the game and go this way or whatever. Like you just don't know.
So it's like the characters have gotten so powerful,
right?
That
only like world-ending events are worth their time at this point. Like going and saving the town from a goblin raid just doesn't make sense when you're like, the local garrison can handle that. And level 2s can do that.
And so you're either sort of at risk of either like TPKing. Well, this is sort of always a challenge, right? And we do have a card. Slide into my DMs. Just point to your forehead. We do have a slide.
His forehead.
My DMs on balancing combat and the challenges. So I think this is somewhat applicable at all levels, but especially as you get later on in the game, it's like the line gets finer and finer between like you're either going to TPK your party, total party kill, or
it's not challenging. Yeah, it's like that line as the levels get higher, just like thins out. So bad.
And I think as a DM, that's where we, at least for me, I tend to fall into my, a comfortable cadence, right? I'm comfortable running at local levels, at city levels, at like state levels. But then when you start getting to a scale, for me, it's very difficult to in my mind understand the scale, keeping the scale of it in mind and trying to make them feel like the players feel like it's not just another, hey, this is just, we're killing Vecna and he's really just a pouty child that's got his own castle that we're gonna go and beat him up in, making it feel like, oh man, like this is much more expansive, or this is much greater. Since we don't do that as DMs very often, I feel like that for me, I shy away from it just because it's just like it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable.
So that might be another reason is just lack of experience on the DM's part.
Yeah, lack of experience. I think that like you said, the groups fall apart before we get there. I saw this graph. I believe it was a D&D Beyond had put it out, but it was like the active campaigns in D&D Beyond and like what level they were at. And it was like 1 through 10 had a little bit. Then there was like 1% all the way until like level 13. It was like 0, and then level 20 shot up again for all those people doing like one shots. So I think like people skip and just like, hey, let's try a level 20 one shot and just see what it's like, because they're never going to get there unless they do it as a one shot.
I have one more reason why I think this occurs, and I think it's because D&D is designed as a game to play level 1 to 20, right? And again, we've got I think it kind of just boils down to everything else kind of goes into there is like, if we've got to play from 1 to 20, we're going to start at level 1 and we're going to see where the campaign goes. And if that starts with an adventure, you definitely don't want to start with like a level 20 campaign, because people are going to be like, hang on, let me spend 10 minutes every turn trying to remember all my different rules. Because we've seen that with our different,
even level 16 or 13, it's hard.
And whatnot.
20K was what? Even that was
And it gets even more complicated when you get up to level 20. And that's something that it kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of the game if you start there. But if you start at level 1 and you build up and you like, I know all of my abilities and I'm adding new ones, then it's even cooler. But by the time you get to level 15, maybe you're bored of that character.
Sure.
Maybe everyone's done with the campaign. Maybe the DM really only had one thing planned for it.
Right.
For me,
or the group falls apart, or things like we've talked about. The longer the campaign goes, the longer you stay with the characters, the greater the likelihood of something happening to end, your experience.
The other question I have though is like, does a D&D game really ever end? Even when you get like, is it like
in my heart?
Point?
That's
I don't know that there is.
That's a good point.
I feel like we ended Bronze Battalion, but there's like so much more of the story that I want to get back to it. And same with the Horde of the Broken Spear campaign that we were doing. Like it ended, but like, did it really end? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like all those stories can continue. And I've heard of groups that are like going on 20, 25 plus years at this point, playing the same campaign. And I'm like, you've been playing a level 20 character for the past 15 years because
they're doing Paragon levels.
I mean, and if they're not, like if it's like, oh, that character died originally and I start back at level 1 with a new one, it's like, okay, well now we get into the Ship of Theseus. It's like, when does it become a new D&D game, you know?
I don't think it ever does if you keep the campaign, right? And then it's like, okay, this character retired and now his son takes up the mantle and we're starting again, like from level 2 or something. Like that would be really cool.
So I absolutely love that. I always love doing like time skips for a new campaign, but in the same area.
It's like legacy board games, right? But just at a D&D level.
So here's kind of what I want to say to maybe segue into the next part. I love D&D with all of my heart at every stage of the game. However, having played late game just a couple of times, and by late game I mean like level 13 plus, that's my favorite phase of the game, I think, like as a player. And I can't speak as a DM, obviously. I'm sure that it's problematic for a number of reasons, but not to say that like I just want to play at that level all of the time, but there's something that like that finale of the Rise of Tiamat, right, where we had a
crescendo
2-year buildup. And our characters just got more and more powerful, and we had all those memories and experiences and like, you know what I mean? And just that build and build and build and build to this final huge, awesome, amazing like fight that just felt like it felt so epic and amazing. And partly due to the fantastic, I think, 3D model work that Corey and Scott, his brother, put together for us for that campaign and stuff like that. It was so awesome. And it was so cool to be like, like my character is amazing. Like, and not invincible. Cause like, it was still right. Like, and so like, I would encourage players and DMs to let your stories go, like as long as you can keep your group together and as long as everybody else is on board and still interested in the characters and things like that, like let that happen, right? But so I guess the question then is, what advice can we give to players, to DMs, to maybe see a little bit more high level play at our tables, and like how to make it work well, from like balancing combat to all of those things. Like, what advice would you guys give?
The one thing that I find in any video game that I play, don't make it too easy, because if you make it too easy on the onset, it makes it difficult. Like at later levels, it's that climb, right? For me, in Diablo, in Warcraft, if someone comes in and just dumps, hey, here's all the highest level gear you can get, here's the highest level whatever, and they just hand it to me, I'm basically guaranteed I'm never going to play that game again, because I didn't work for it, and it just feels like it's cheap, you know. But if you make him work for it, then I feel like that's, and make it meaningful, you know. If you stretch that out and you make them feel like there's that growth between the leveling, they form that emotional bond to that character, and they want to see that character succeed.
Okay.
Yep, my biggest thing, and this is kind of how planning went for Tales of an Area, is start with a goal in mind for level 20, right? Like it's all well and good, because when I ran Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, the end of that adventure was the end of the campaign, and we weren't at level 20 yet. And I just went, I don't have anything more epic than this to give you guys. Like I can come up with something, but it would take time, and it might not feel like quite to the same scale. It would feel like a later expansion in something like World of Warcraft, where it's like, well, now we have to go fight this even badder guy, and
we've got
more
to
powerful.
Descend into hell to rescue Thornock.
To Avernus.
Exactly. And that's essentially what would be the next chapter for that.
Right.
But for Tales of Veneria, I sat down one day and I went, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do for the end game? Because the end game has to be just as important as the early game, or else it's going to feel like it's just crammed in there at the end.
Right.
If you guys finish the story and you're level 14, and then I'm like, okay, and now after like a year, something else happens. Then you get into the syndrome of like, oh, this feels like a sequel, and it doesn't feel like a really good sequel with a plot or anything like that.
It's the Matrix Reloaded.
It's ready. I've been reading Ready Player 2 from Ernest Cline.
Same here.
And I like it, but I hate it at the same time, because they took their characters and they made their characters level 20, essentially in the world, right? Where it's like, we're now all billionaires and we can do whatever we want. Now what? Now what is the author going to be able to do to make us struggle and have that journey?
You have to see if you maintain your morals as a billionaire.
Exactly.
Do you donate?
It's just nothing but
just
like
all internal.
It's just nothing but like insight checks.
Yeah.
That's tip 20. Number 2 for me is, it doesn't become a question of, can we do this for your party? It becomes a question of, should we do this? And thanks to a Reddit post for saying that, because I think it's a fantastic way of describing that. It no longer becomes about your characters struggling to basically destroy the big bad evil or to destroy this army that's invading. It becomes a, should we do this? What are the moral implications of our actions at this point? Because we're essentially gods, so we can start affecting things on a multi-dimensional scale.
Yeah.
They were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what else? What other suggestions, advice? I mean, how about like from a balancing combat perspective? What are some things to keep in mind that can help you walk that fine line of combat balance at high level play?
Yeah, I think grind them down before they get to the boss. And then the boss is actually like cool, because part of the problem at high level is if you throw him straight to the boss and they kick his butt, then you're like, oh well. All that build up for what? Like, he was so lame.
So
don't
give him a long rest and jump into the final boss.
Maybe have a dungeon crawl that leads up to him, and there's lots of traps and enemies, or I don't know, but grind them down as you get to that point, so that they still have their stuff. And maybe if they were smart, they held on to their high level stuff. And maybe they had to spend it to res a player, who knows, but kind of make them grind and work for it, so when they get there, it's a big payoff.
Players, make sure you take catnap as a spell. You can at least get a short rest right before that final boss.
I'd say with that, you could also play with the scale of things. So you could pull a Ender's Game on them, right? And so like, as they're doing this big fight up here, that there's all these other tertiary things going on down below that either they're directly involved with or not. And then their decisions that they make actively are starting to reflect outside. So maybe if they're fighting on like the plane of some god and they end up killing this important piece of the deity, suddenly this entire segment of that place is now dead and withered and becomes something different. Or like give strong, because with these big things, like give those big swings in consequence and action. So
I'd say you can also add scale in the sense of like having other like battles maybe going on, like you're the strike team and like this is the war, but you're like the special unit that's going in to get this done. Like this is all the distraction while you do your thing, and kind of have this like scale, and like you said, have consequences there. Like maybe these people are dying, like we had in our campaign.
Like especially important characters that people love.
Yeah, that was a sad
So something else that I think that sparked when something that Dallin, that you were saying about stories, and that they don't necessarily have to end, because for me, I would always be shy that my least favorite part of every book series, every television series, whatever, is usually that they always come to an end, right? And the same thing with my character. I built this character that I love, and now at level 20, now they just ascend to godhood, and then that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of that. And so doing things where it's like, hey, maybe you do ascend to godhood and somebody else comes and, you know, Hercules gets you to drink this thing, and now you're mortal again, you're level 2. Now you got to go and regain your own power.
Prestige class.
Something. Yeah, now you're prestiging or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that when you're designing combats, one, feel free to add as many traps and hazards that you want. Like with traps and hazards now at our current level in our Tales of Veneria campaign, we're at like level 5 to 10, which by the way is my favorite time frame for any campaign, is when you guys start like really ramping up and you're starting to feel a little bit more powerful and confident, and it leads you to some dumb mistakes sometimes. But what I like to do is I like to throw in traps, but have them be like, this will trigger on your next turn if you're still in this area, to make people think about movement and placement more. But at a higher level campaign, I'll be like, no, every turn the entire floor does like 2d12 fire damage to everybody, because at a high level that's more of a nuisance than anything else.
Right.
Also, throw mooks at them. Oh my gosh, put an army of 100 goblins in the room.
And
Don't
let
really
slaughter
give
them
them
all.
stats beyond like using them as maybe like a swarm or something.
Sure.
And just let them go ham, because they will absolutely love it, and they will feel as epic as their level is.
Let the wizard crit and disintegrating ray just like crit lander across the crowd.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think, and you know, obviously some of this advice and tips can be used for you know, earlier levels. It doesn't have to be only at like level 17 that you maybe do these things. It's probably applicable to the end of a campaign, like the finale, you know, despite whatever level you're at. But I think maybe particularly at those higher levels, it's that much more important to give your characters an opportunity to both feel really powerful but still feel challenged, right?
Also, feel free to homebrew more. Feel free to come up with some crazy monsters, because your players can handle it, and if they can't, they've got resurrections out the butt. Like it's fine. They're going to be all right.
Unless you're a druid who didn't realize that Revivify was a spell.
Reincarnate uses.
I don't know where you get that.
Looking at
I've
you,
never met anyone
Preston.
who did that kind of thing. No one's ever.
As I lay dying on the floor.
And
here's a good berry.
20k on Down's forehead. Oh, what is this? That's what we're alluding to.
And your boss monsters, limited magic immunity, make those high level spells really what causes the change in the tide. Low level spells really do nothing. You've got legendary resistances. Give your legendary actions, make
Layer
them
actions.
as badass as possible in order to and be more prepared to improvise.
Yeah.
If your boss is being hurt too quickly, triple his health.
Yeah.
Or kill
still
off their
find
favorite
it just as
NPC
epic.
using him, and then they'll get even more invested. And
Yeah, the struggle with adding HP to a monster like that, though, is like, it got hit for a ton of damage, but when it hits one of them,
it might
knock them down. So like I don't want to add too much health, because then maybe it goes 4 rounds, and it really could only go 2 rounds. So it's like it's just a tightrope. You just have to, as a DM, you just get a feel for it. I don't know, like that's like horrible advice, but like you kind of just get a feel for it as you go.
practice.
Just practice. Exactly.
so another thing, I guess we've already talked about this in some other combats, but maybe multi-phase your boss. You can take this one from Final Fantasy, where
My final
you
form.
hit it, and then he breaks down, and then he comes back to life, and now he's a bigger form, and then you kill that part, and then he comes back as like this god form, and
maybe have that as an option, but
Yes.
like, do you know what I mean? Like,
back pocket it.
So like if your characters blow through them way too easily, you're like, okay, second form. But if like they almost die, like in the initial,
he falls in the vat of magic acid. Now he's got this.
But
crazy
again, if you
form.
ever do things like that, or if you're ever fudging numbers or adding hit points to a monster like behind your screen, please do not.
Don't
give
break the
any
illusion.
inkling to your players that you're doing that. Any other final tips, advice that you guys would have for people who are interested in getting into high level play a little more frequently, or trying it even for the first time?
I mean, humans always suck at goodbyes and ends. So brush up on your fantasies that have good endings and kind of
good epilogue.
Exactly.
Yep.
Good, like tie it up with a bow.
Right.
Yeah.
Tie all the loose
Reread
threads.
as a DM. Go reread, or even as a player, go reread your initial what you wrote,
Yeah.
and see where you're at and where you've come, and see if there's any additional like bows you can throw on the top that is like, oh yeah, I forgot they talked about this person, and give them that payoff at the end. It's
Mhm.
just like that golden return. The prodigal son runs back and everyone's happy and whatever.
I'd say kind of a controversial one here. Sometimes the villain's motivation doesn't really matter at high levels. They can just be a big bad warlord that's trying to conquer all of reality, and you don't need to have them be nuanced. Like, I'm
That's
doing this
real.
to save
Genghis
my
Khan.
lover.
That's a real thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even a stretch.
Yeah. Like, and it just sometimes it doesn't matter, because at that point your players are like, we've had all of these character moments and we're all emotionally like, our characters are emotionally established. Now let's just go ahead and just kill demons until level 20,
Be gratifying. Yeah, just a slaughter the whole way.
Be grateful that you're not in 4th edition, which had 30 levels instead.
Ooh.
That sounds lovely. That sounds like job security for me.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
So 6th edition better have more levels.
Yep.
What we're doing for job security.
All right. Well, cool. I hope that you guys who are watching both enjoyed this, but then also would give us, your own tips, tricks, advice for those of you who have seen high level play and have seen it done effectively at your tables. Let us know, what advice you guys have, or if you have additional thoughts on, why we don't see it, and whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. I personally would love to see more high level stuff. Again,
I agree.
Not just like start every campaign at level 10 and go to 20 every time, you know what I mean? But I think especially on a longer campaign, it's just a great sort of payoff to be able to get to those like upper tiers of like all of your most powerful abilities and really feel like your character has sort of reached their full potential. You know what I mean? That you've spent so much time with and been
sworn the 4th ideal.
Yeah.
Now you're just awesome.
Exactly. Anyway.
I want to add a personal note that I absolutely have been having a blast talking with everybody in the comments. So please do feel free to at any of us, because we love talking and discussing things, and even if we don't agree with you.
Opinion.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's a
Okay.
safe space.
Well, thanks, guys. Corey, Preston, I would appreciate it if next time you would read the memo that I send about color coordination for the day, because
Corey got close.
Navy blue.
Yeah. I mean,
for this episode.
Yep.
I'll
Sorry.
sit behind here.
And anyway, for those watching, I love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you so much for your support, and take care. Hope to see you again very soon. And until then, have fun playing some D&D. Okay.
Bye.
Talk to you later.